Welcome everyone to Arcus Power's first edition of our webinar series. I'm Anuj, and today we have a rather very interesting topic of discussion, especially considering the record-breaking peak demand numbers we've seen in ERCOT ASO in the last couple of weeks. And today we have with us Dr. Mike Quashie, who is the Chief Modeling Officer at Arcus Power. A quick introduction about Dr. Quashie. He holds a PhD in electrical engineering in McGill University. His career in AI-driven solutions and microgrid innovation began at Berkeley National Lab, where he was part of the team that pioneered microgrid research. His expertise spans machine learning, power system dynamics, and scalable AI solutions. His contributions to the IEEE Power and Energy Society Task Force on microgrid dynamic modeling have cemented his reputation as a visionary in the field. And driven by a deep commitment to sustainable energy, Dr. Mike Quashie plays a pivotal role that centers around scalable AI solutions that are deemed to revolutionize the power system. Thank you, Dr. Mike Quashie, for being part of the first webinar in our Arcus series of webinars going forward.
Thank you for having me, Anuj.
Great. So I think internally the topic has been in discussion over the last few weeks, especially regarding the ERCOT winter demand spike, which is caused due to the unusual winter breeze, and whether this is an effect of global warming or if there is an actual call for a peak winter program in ERCOT, similar to what was implemented in PGM many years ago. And I believe Dr. Mike has been discussing internally and also analyzing this over the last couple of weeks, and perhaps there is a call to the unprecedented changes in the weather patterns. Would you like to say anything regarding this, Dr.?
I think it's an interesting observation that we've made over the past years and an indicative of what is likely going to be a trend, an expected trend. So at Arcus, we've seen the need to take an extensive view of what is happening and also conduct an extensive analysis on all the factors that are driving this and then the potential impact on the markets. And I'm more than happy to dive into our analysis and also provide context to what we'll be talking about today.
Let's kick off. Dr. Quashie, if you could give us an overview of the Texas energy market and its current load profile. And essentially, in what ways do you believe that these unique aspects of our Texas market essentially influence its load profile compared to other regions of United States? If you could give us a brief overview of the whole thing.
Yeah, so the Texas electricity market have unique components in the sense that it's one of the, if not the largest generation market in the US. Mostly its load profile compared with other regions is usually driven by temperature, like high temperatures, based on the climate in Texas. You look at its generation profile, you can see it's got a lot of oil and gas components, and then it has some solar in there, and then wind generation. So the generation mix has wind, solar, gas, coal, and nuclear. But then you can see gas constitute major part of the generation mix, which is of no surprise considering that it is an oil producing state, and then you have a lot of gas. You shouldn't be surprised that we have a lot of gas generation there. With that said, its load profile is also one of the highest in the nation. You've seen the load profile getting close to 80 gigawatts. We've seen some record load summer peaks over the years, and we expect this trend to be growing. It's just like an energy market which provide more incentive to have a lot of generators online, with less incentive to have like reserve marginal capacities being reserved. It also has, for the generation side, it has the day ahead market and then the real-time market for different zones. The ERCOT market is divided into about 13 zones, and then we have hubs. So different zones and hubs have different price prices, and the real time clears in 15 minutes.
Right. And sorry.
Go ahead. So I was just going to touch on the trend on the demand side. You could see that, I mean, over the years, the winter peak demand has been changing over the years. We could see, like in 2019, we were having peak demand around 50 gigawatts. This demand has been growing gradually over the years, and then just this winter, we saw a peak demand of close to 79 gigawatts, which is highly comparable to the peak demand we saw in summer. And this one of the drivers of the conversation we are having today. And we want to take a look at take a various perspective of this trend that we see.
Right. Do you believe that if you could briefly touch upon like the correlation between the changes and load impact, especially on the energy planning and forecasting models in Texas, especially considering the abrupt, the unprecedented weather changes and the weather patterns that have been affecting the grid, and perhaps you could even talk about the grid resiliency and the grid stability due to these weather conditions. Also, I think is another great point you could probably touch upon regarding this.
Yes. So when you talk about power planning or generation planning, it's usually driven by your having a better insight or forecast of your load or your demand. So when you have a better visibility of your demand, you can plan generation around it. So as we tend to have like record temperatures, or as temperatures increase in summer, for instance, you tend to have a lot of consumption, demand increases, and then you need to produce more power to maintain power balance. So in essence, to maintain the grid stability and reliability. As generation tends to as demand tends to increase with record temperatures, you see that the grid stability gets threatened, because what you find is that you find demand going up, and if you don't have enough generation or enough reserve capacity to meet up demand, then the reliability of the grid gets threatened. Threatened. An interesting observation that we've seen over the winter period is that generation will be getting to demand will be getting to levels where you think in ERCOT you have enough capacity to meet that demand. But what we've seen is that you have like wind generation, for instance. You have enough wind generation, but then when you have these winter waves coming in, wind generation, the amount of available wind generation goes down. And then that threatens the power balance of the grid or the grid stability, because what you're having is like you're having record demand or demand levels getting closer to summer, where you had like enough wind generation available in summer. But then as we got into winter, you're having comparable demand with less available generation, and that could threaten like grid stability, and also put grid infrastructure at unstable or close to unstable levels. It's something that's not always desirable, and then also leads the grid operator to issue conservation alerts so that people conserve electricity or reduce their consumption.
And especially looking at the recent trends in weather and the implications it's had on the load, what plausible predictions can we essentially make for the future of grid reliability and the grid stability as well, especially in the ERCOT market? And touching upon that point, this would also constitute to adoption of a lot of clean energy system, a lot of renewable energy systems into the grid, and effectively putting a lot of burden on the grid stability also. How do you believe energy providers and policymakers should essentially adapt to these trends, especially with regard to planning and operation of renewable energy sources with the Texas grid?
Yeah, so looking at the changing climate conditions, increasing temperature, it fits into the idea of like there's going to be increased demand. Like over the past 2 years, we saw in 2022, we saw record temperature levels in summer, which translated into record demand level at the time. So telling you our consumption is increasing and there's a need for us to provide enough generation to meet this demand. The question is it are some of these changes being driven by global warming or climate change? If so, then I mean, what can we do to mitigate some of these changes? The obvious answer will be going into renewables, right? See how best we can come up. We can come up with green generation to see if we can meet our demand, and also at the same time try to mitigate the impact of climate change and global warming to see if we can reverse some of this trend or minimize the rates of change of this trend. So going into renewables to meet the current growing consumption is a possible idea, and policymakers should be looking at that and should be putting policies in place to encourage investments in those renewables. Also, at Arcus, we're developing AI-driven solutions that support renewable energy planning and integration. So one of the challenges with renewables is how to forecast how much energy you're going to have available from your wind gen or your solar gen. With our AI-driven solutions, we're giving you the capability to have a firm or a confident view of the output of your generation, and by so doing, we are helping drive the deployment of more renewable energy solution as well as hybrid solution that have like storage attached to it.
And considering global warming and climate change and the weather patterns changing year over year, considering the recent trends, is the ERCOT ERS, the Emergency Response Service, equipped to essentially handle a lot of the future challenges? Do you think, and I know we discussed earlier about, essentially bringing in, if there is a call to introduce a winter peak program similar to what PJM had introduced many years ago, what additional measures do you think might be necessary to essentially aid in weather variability and its unpredictability on the grid due to the weather impacts?
Yeah, so the ERC will be serving some purpose to date. There are you still be able to reduce some consumption as you send out those signals to available participants to reduce their load. And then when you send out signals out there, like alerts out there for people in the province to reduce their load. But over the years, people have been complaining in the states. People are complaining about those alerts being sent out there, and then the cost of the ERS program. We have caps on them. So the question is, how much energy are being conserved when those alerts are sent out? When you look at, over let's take 2023 for instance, there were about 13 alerts. Over the past few weeks, I think 3 alerts or so were sent out in ERCOT. The consumption were on the average about 500 to 1,000 megawatts. It looks good. However, will this be enough as the trend continues? As we start having winter peak demand getting close to 80 gigawatts or getting to more than 80 gigawatts, will you, by reducing just 500 megawatts, will it be enough to avoid putting strain on the grid? So then it begs the question, do we need other programs to supplement what we have now? When we look at summer, when we're having record temperatures in ERCOT and record demand level in ERCOT, most industries participating in the CP program, the summer CP program, where to take advantage of the program, they reduce their cost. And that's helped the grid to manage the strain that was put on it at the time. During the winter period, alerts are sent, and you have the ERS playing a role, and then also citizens also playing some role, trying to reduce the load. But would this be enough when the load pattern continues to increase? I doubt it will be enough going forward as we see a growing pattern, and then there will be the need for us to introduce similar programs for winter, just like it's been done in PGM. PGM introduced their winter program not long ago when they saw, and I believe it's highly driven by the changing weather pattern that they've observed. And this seems to be happening across different markets as well, looking at climate change and stuff like that. So the question, or the question the conversation we want to start having is to start talking about an introduction of a winter program for the ERCOT markets. And as Arcus, we usually try to plan ahead, as we already like forecasters, right? We are in the machine learning business where we predict ahead of time. In the same way, we also plan ahead of time. We already have tools for the summer CP programs. So we've already started working on tools to support winter CP programs, just so that when the conversation gets to the level where it's likely to be deployed or implemented, market participants can easily fall on Arcus to support them in those programs. And we are also willing to participate in stakeholder engagement around this topic to help drive the conversation and then the implementation of winter CP program in ERCOT, which we highly believe will help minimize the strain on the grid in such during this time, especially when you have low wind availability, which minimize your generation availability, and then you have like increasing generation closer to summer level. Definitely, there's a need for you to introduce additional programs in addition to the ERS that we currently have in place in order to maintain grid stability and also minimize the strain that we put in on the grid.
Do you think there's any other reform that perhaps, other than the policymakers, or does it have to come from the institutional levels, or do you believe that global warming should be mainly with a lot of intervention from the government side of things?
I believe so. I believe the discussion on global warming and climate change has been ongoing for years, and now it's not. It's like accepted. It's widely accepted. So having a conversation on that shouldn't be that difficult. However, we now seeing the impact of global warming in different aspects of the economy, and we being electricity market participants, we seen the direct impact. We've been leading conversation on introduction or integration of renewable energy technologies. We've been supporting that or supplementing those efforts by developing AI solutions that helps with the planning of these generations. And also we've been coming up with good forecast that tries to highlight the economic values of hybrid renewable and storage projects. So we'll be supporting the efforts in that perspective, and we think those conversations should be ongoing, and we should also be open to other programs and other solutions that will complement the efforts that are already being put in place. And definitely, there should be stakeholder engagement. Market participants should be actively involved in this conversation.
Fantastic. I think this was especially this particular topic sort of addresses the current need, especially with everything that's been happening, with the alerts from ASO and with the record-breaking peak numbers that we've seen in ERCOT in the last couple of weeks. I think this is something I believe Arcus is focused on providing more solutions and more clarity and more forecasting models, and assisting this as a future trend as well to a lot of businesses, not only to help reduce constraints on the grid, but also on consumer level as well, also from market participants in terms of pricing and coincident peak mitigation, for instance. Thank you, Mike. This was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing up this for discussing for introducing this topic within Arcus, and I think it was a much needed conversation that had to be had within the organization as well. And we always thought this was something great to sort of share with our audience as well, and people who've been following Arcus for a while. Any last words regarding this, Mike?
Thank you so much for having me, Anuj, and for creating this platform for us to continue this discussion. It's my hope that the discussions do not end here. We keep having this discussion, and then we hope to talk to introduce more interesting topics that might be of interest to market participants. So hopefully we might have more stuff to talk about, and I look forward to engaging in subsequent discussions and continuing this discussion outside this platform as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.